2022 meeting of the Fire Station Building.
This meeting is being recorded.
To order.
It is. Sorry.
That's okay. First agenda item, public comment. Is there anyone on Zoom?
No, just me, myself, and I.
Okay, all right. Before we get to discussion items, anyone that watched the last
What's up there?
select board meeting knows that they voted to
Did a
add
great job.
Todd to our committee. So at least for the time being, we're a committee of 8. And so I think it's a good move between the transition between Blythe and Todd or whoever. I think the plan is, I don't know what exactly the plan is, and I don't think Todd knows either, but that it may, once the town administrator role gets formally filled, that person would replace Todd, but I think the idea is that Todd will stay on until that happens, so we have some town presence on the committee. So, welcome aboard. Thank you.
He joined me at the working group meeting today, so.
Oh, good.
He heard lots and lots of details about the interior finishes, so.
All right. So then I'll run through the discussion items just in the order I have them, Ron, unless you want to jump around, but.
Should I plug into that or?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, first item is exterior samples.
Or maybe we can talk about the trailer first, so that Chief can talk about that, take off. Does that work?
Can we jump to an action item?
You can do whatever you like, sir.
Okay, all right.
You're the chairman.
I don't know. I didn't know if we had to go in order or not, but.
You can, unless you have a mutiny by the others, you could do what.
Okay, then unless someone stops me, we'll consider a course of action regarding a temporary trailer for department operations. So, does everyone know what this, we kind of filled Justin in a little bit because he missed the meeting when we talked about this. Does everybody know what we're voting on? Do you have any updates? I know you were going to talk to the rest of your staff last time.
Yeah, for the greater good of the greater good of the project, you know, they are on board if there's the assurance that if it doesn't pass, then it's going to happen. You know, and you know, I think they understand that, you know, saying that there's a 500,000, but even all if it's not strictly the trailer, you realize that the perception of that is what's the hurdle to overcome, and we don't want to have that perception out there hindering the overall completion of the project. And we'd rather have the money going towards a project, especially if it passes, then, you know, we're in a situation where it's better, you know, better for the whole project. And if it doesn't, they have the kind of security or assurance that something's going to be done to address the overburdened housing situation.
Okay. Is this something that would be phrased in the ballot as like vote on a $27 million firehouse or a $500,000 trailer?
Well, we don't need a vote on the trailer because we have the money for it.
We need a vote on the trailer because we have money.
So that's the idea, is that basically we can do the trailer.
Okay, because I'm like, I know I have to have my
Yeah,
my.
because I could see if we were putting
Yeah.
this or
Audio
that
on.
on there, I could predict which way that would go.
Sure. All right, and I think we weren't being recorded yet, but I think as Aaron aptly pointed out, it's, you know, kudos to your staff. It's another sacrifice they're making that hopefully gets this project moving forward. So I guess just to summarize so that there's some record of it, the vote is essentially we're going to change course a little bit and have we're going to bid the fire station project and the new double wide trailer at the same time. If the fire station project goes forward, the existing trailer will remain and the staff will remain in there through the course of construction. If the fire station project does not go forward, then we'll immediately move into getting a new double wide trailer for the staff. So All those in favor of that course of action, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. All right, vote is unanimous. Thanks, Chief. All right, now you're up, Ron.
Okay, so we went through all this afternoon, so I know you've got interviews.
I just would like to apologize really quick. We're facing a little bit of a time crunch too with the SAFER grant and all of that, so we're trying to interview and find some good candidates. So we've done one round of interviews, this is our second round. Hopefully we can have a decision. So it just so happened that scheduling wise, I couldn't get all of my staff together except for tonight. So thank you all for understanding. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, good luck.
Take care.
So I'm trying to share my screen in Zoom. Is it working?
Nope. Do I need to give you?
Pick a screen.
Well, that would help, wouldn't it?
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
So we met today and we talked about basically the interiors, and so one of the things we're in the process of doing is getting all these samples down so you can see them all. And some of them are over at the fire station now. The linoleum is there, Flotex is there. We're gonna get a walk-off mat and a grill. The idea is that as you enter into the station, outside the vestibule door, there'd be a metal grill in terms of a walk-off mat. And then the vestibule and the lobby would have,
I can only see your savings list.
You have a bunch of different screens, so you gotta share each one.
I'm like, what are you talking about? I see a savings list.
oh, how does this happen?
Go back to your Zoom, that one.
Yeah, that's the one I can see.
And then you're gonna share.
Oh, yeah, you're not sharing the screen, you're sharing the
Pick which
file.
screen you want. Share
Okay.
screen,
Stop sharing.
and then you pick which one you want.
Really? It's not up there. There it is. Okay. So this is what we want to share.
Because I was like, I don't understand.
All right, so we got some materials that are coming into the fire station now. We invite you all to, when it's convenient for you, just go by the station, the chief has them, so you can see them. We did talk about what are we doing for some of these spaces. For instance, inside the meeting room. So you're gonna see in a few minutes on our savings list, this entire one-story area of the building, which is basically from the lobby east, there are no more columns and beams. So we talked last week about getting rid of some of them. We've now gotten rid of all of them. So the strategic move to get rid of all of them means that we're framing it all out of light gauge studs. So it's all framed out of load-bearing metal studs. And what that means is we have an opportunity to actually use light gauge metal frame trusses. Now, if we do that, there was some thoughts earlier on when we were sharing what the exterior volume and massing might look like. The question came in, could we vault the ceiling in that space? So the answer is, yeah. If we do, if we go around this route and we use the trusses, we can certainly do something like that. The only question is, these light gauge trusses are not the nicest thing to look at. If you were to buy the most, if you were to buy the most economical version. So we're gonna see if we can get some that are a little bit more dressed up, the detailing's a little bit better, and then we would just paint them out a color. Or we could also wrap them in drywall and paint them a color, or we could wrap it in plywood and then attach a finished wood to it.
Look like a
So-
rector set type.
Yeah, so we shared an image of what these actually, what the most economical ones look like. And it's the same thing with wood trusses, right? If you get wood trusses, they have sort of the plates and they're kind of like stapled in there, but you could also pay more money to get a better species of wood. You can have real metal connections, you can make them look much nicer. Keep in mind that this is being balanced off by all of the savings of getting rid of all of the structural steel and framing this out of something a completely different way.
As a firefighter, I have to oppose the use of any kind of lightweight truss. especially in this situation here. That's like the single most dangerous construction element to firefighters, and
Mhm.
we shouldn't be advertising that within the building. So if we
Okay.
do go this route, I would like to see like a post and beam or mortise and tenon joint or whatever, a solid, like heavy timber construction trusses
Okay.
in that environment. And then you'd likely probably only need 2 of them instead of 5.
Well, I was gonna bring up, I mean, normally wood trusses and light gauge trusses are, 2 to 4 feet on center, which is obviously much closer together than what you're showing there.
Right, because these aren't that kind of light gauge.
Yeah.
They're not the light frame. I know what you're talking about, because the metal gets a lot thinner,
Right.
right? And the wood is obviously a lot thinner when we're talking about that kind of construction where they have to be 2 feet on center. These are not that light construction, I guess, because this still is a Category 4 design. So we are maintaining the Category 4 design. It's just a different way to frame this, and you can see that these things are gonna be like 6 feet apart. So why don't we do this? Why don't I bring that concern back to the structural engineer, and we'll talk to them about it, and see if there's some kind of document that they could give to us that basically explains how this, number one, it is still Category 4, but how it differs from something that might be of a concern.
I mean, unless it's encased in concrete, then there's no way for it to differ. Like, they just elongate and expand so quickly when they get exposed to the heat, the whole roof just comes down.
Okay.
So, obviously, the larger the framing member you can get, like, we see them where there's like 20 feet on center.
Yeah.
But, and the gusset plates that are on the wood ones only hold grip by like 3/8 of galvanized, and that stuff pops out at like 300 degrees. Which I realize we're not building a building to burn, but if we're
Mhm.
building a fire station, we shouldn't advertise a construction method that like kills multiple firefighters.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest maybe it's, if we wanna have them spaced further apart, maybe it's actual structural steel trusses. I don't think that would be that difficult to design.
Mhm.
I just don't think that, I mean, it's still the exact same concern.
Okay.
Unless it's like, it needs like a 4-hour fire rating, if you're gonna do that.
Yeah, you'd have
And
to
that-
pay,
It would be ugly.
You'd have to, you'd have to wrap it in a couple layers of Type X or something.
Or put it into messing paint.
Or maybe both.
And if we're going,
And I mean, it is a sprinkle building too.
if we're going that route, and the outside, like, you're gonna have an outside that looks nice to fit the community, the inside, you're gonna be like, what is this, an industrial building? Like, if we're gonna do it, I think it should be wooden.
We did talk about that, the aesthetic of it also earlier today.
Okay, well, again, we're gonna have to go back because we think the post and beam, heavy timber, the LVLs and the CLT, it's all gonna be more expensive than
It's
this.
definitely gonna be expensive, but
So-
you're gonna need a lot fewer of them, which
Yeah.
might help offset that.
Okay, well, so I'm just gonna segue into the fact that this is a combustible building, it's a type
Mhm.
5, okay, so we're good with that.
Yeah, it's just the wood
Um,
trusses and the metal trusses and like the steel bar joist trusses that are the problem. It's not the stick built lumber or
Right.
the like aluminum studs or anything.
Okay. All right. So then we wanted to share some images of, like, some of these spaces, right? Because we've heard a lot, and I think, Aaron, you were just mentioning this earlier, we've heard a lot about, how big are these spaces, and it's a wish list. So this is actually what the chief's office looks like in 3D. And what we are doing now is talking about those finishes and what it's gonna look like sort of inside. And we've got some pictures of, what a bunk room might look like. And this is actually the handicap compliant bunk room. So this isn't necessarily the small one. This is the one that complies with handicap compliance. So we have some spatial concepts here. And then this is the kitchen that we've talked about for a while. And so what we have here is the island in plan. We have 2 sides of the kitchen, which has the cabinetry and the refrigerator, and then that immediately goes right into the dining room. And another view of that, looking the other way, is from the kitchen, looking towards the day room. Again, this is the dining room table. What you're looking at here is paint. So the idea is to take a paint grade wood product and just use those sort of as a chair rail and as a base, and then everything else is painted drywall. And, you know, what we're showing here is not saying that this is the colors that it's gonna be. We've tried to use just some neutral colors to talk about how we can sort of create that environment with using very inexpensive materials and a play on materials. So it may take on the look of paneling or the look of, you know, something different than drywall, but really it's just paint and paint grade wood and trim. And then, you know, this is the day room where we've talked in the past about, you know, the owner's gonna buy the furniture, right? So you all will be in control of the furniture, but right now what we're showing are the 9 Barker lounges, and we just picked a Barker lounge to show. It's just a placeholder, if you will. But again, it's just the idea of being able to have something that's a little bit more durable, so when you back the furniture up into the wall, there is trim there, and then the panels themselves are just painted drywall. And so that's kind of like the look. So I don't know if there's any questions about that area of the building.
How nitpicky do we get at this stage? I can't make the working
Nitpick
group
what?
meetings because of like our
Sure.
childcare schedule.
Sure, understand.
I think there should be a television hookup somewhere in the dining room area, the eating area. That
Yep.
seems to be pretty common in most firehouses.
Yep.
So even if one's not, I mean, most typically the firefighters that work there provide the actual television, but there at least should be some place there where they can put it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's been.
If you show
thought
the
of or
other
talked about.
version looking towards the day room.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just.
That
go right
might
back to
be
the other
exactly
one.
what he's talking about.
It is, yeah. So,
I saw the nice picture of the building there.
So that could be a TV.
that's on the TV.
Okay, that's on the TV.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
enough.
Yeah.
that's like what I was presenting. So, but it's a good point about the monitors. So we do have the TVs and we do have the monitors. And even if we don't, the alert monitors, right, the dispatch monitors, even if we don't buy the monitors, like let's say we're not gonna buy this TV for whatever reason, the infrastructure will be there.
Okay.
So that you can always put one in. You know, we've got that same thing on the other side of this wall, on the day room side,
Mhm.
there's also a TV hookup. And then in the bunk rooms as well. And they also have the alerting systems, and then we've also gone around. So one thing that we'll share. So one thing that we'll share, as we kind of noodle through it, next week we have a meeting for low voltage systems, with all of the vendors who've put the dispatch and everything else into the fire station when the police station was built. We're trying to figure out how all that stuff actually comes into the building right now. We've had some issues. Matt's been looking at it, we've been looking at it, our electrical engineer's been looking at it. And the decision was, we just gotta call the guys in who actually put this stuff in, because we're trying to make heads or tails out of it. So when that happens, then we're gonna talk about, like, where all the phones. We've gone through this once, for schematic design, and now we're fine tuning it.
Okay.
And you'll see that in the savings list that we're about to share. Anything else that you've seen?
I know the leather furniture will be a problem for some of the taxpayers, but that's the standard. That gives the best, like, cancer protection, doesn't allow the carcinogens to sink into the material, it holds up the most.
Mhm.
And that's like, historically, the firefighters where I work also provide the furniture in the firehouses. And the city, for the first time, when they cleaned all of them with cancer awareness in mind, provided all leather furniture for that reason.
Okay.
So although it may be a higher cost, if we're spending money on a hot, warm, and cold zone and decon showers and whatnot, we can't then just ignore that other aspect of it.
Okay. And like, when the chief's ready to do that, we should have that conversation with him, because what we're gonna do in a few weeks from now, probably mid-May would be the timeframe, is actually put together an actual furniture list. Like, these are the things that are that this project's gonna purchase. And it's everything from the gear extractor to the seats in the day room.
I just think if you show that day room picture at a town meeting, they'd be like, leather, furniture. Flip the
Well,
tables
it's
over.
shown, what I learned was it's shown to say you can fit this many in.
Mhm.
So as we talk about having growth for the future, but we only may buy 4 or 5 of something
Mhm.
right now.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the intent, and we're gonna pick and choose what's shown, because what we wanna do is show it in its real form, you know, and right now, these are just the concept sketches. So as this gets developed, and by the time we get to town meeting, the design will be 100% done. And so, because we're getting actual bids, right? So we'll be able to put renderings together that this is actually what's in the building. Because right now, what we're trying to do is get exactly what you're giving us, right? So the kind of comments and the feedback that we're getting, that's the purpose of these sketches right now. It's not to say that's gonna be sort of a tan and
Right.
a brown and, you know, those might not even be the light fixtures, you know? We just kind of put that in there to represent sort of a pendant light over the table.
Was the kitchen island a request of the department,
It was.
like with seating at it?
Mhm. Yep, so to start this project off, we knew that, you know, we wanted to do it the most economical way possible, right? So what the chief did is, we organized some visits. So we went to Franklin, Waltham, and you all know that, and this is what they, Walpole, yep, and this is what they saw, you know, and Sharon, we went to Sharon. And we literally went through everybody's stuff, right? Because the chiefs let us in, and they invited us in, and they showed us all this, and that's where decisions were made. You know, we don't need this, we don't need this, yes, we need that. We could do this differently at our station, you know, to either combine it with another space or just not build this out. So the concept of the island is gonna allow everybody to sort of be there, and it sort of frees up a lot of the space. So you don't have to have the kitchen table inside of the kitchen, which
Right.
really doesn't sort of work. If people are trying to sit there and work while they eat, while others are trying to just eat and not work, you know, because there's different people at the station at different times doing different things. So that was the thinking there.
I don't know if it's the bunk room picture is a good one to bring it up on, but I saw it on the list as well. The windows that don't open as a cost savings, the windows in the bunk room have to open.
Right, but they don't, not because of cost savings, because of energy efficiency.
Some people are disgusting when they sleep, and the benefit of putting the bunk rooms on the exterior of the building is to allow for airflow, and that's another thing that like really needs to be in there. The people that I talk to are other firefighters who have had newer buildings, that's like their first complaint, is that they can't open the window in the bunk room if they wanted to.
So, I mean, we can have a further discussion on that. What we have is actual mechanical ventilation going on,
Right.
as opposed to opening the window, because one of the things that, you're right, you know, people want to open windows, and sometimes it's even a psychological thing, you know? But then there's the energy efficiency piece of it.
Right.
So, I don't know, it's up to all of you. What do you guys think?
I know that there's mechanical filtration and systems, but they don't operate as quickly as opening a window. It doesn't, like, we've all been in a building that's like musky, even though it has a really high quality ventilation system. Even if you can just like limit the opening of the window by a few inches, if that captures some energy efficiency, but somebody out there has a window that will meet the standard that we're looking for, that allows for some sort of natural ventilation.
Well, what happens to our mass save requirements if we do what Justin's suggesting?
We'd have to check what Mass saves. I mean, I don't want to speak for them. I know that what we're trying to do is, so how the Mass saves works, and I think this is what you're getting at, is they give you basically half of your incentive when the building's done, right? Because we've built it the way we said we're going to build it, and we built it the way we said we're going to build it in compliance with an energy model that we've done. But that energy model is predicting the use, right? So the best way to guard against that is to have like the sensors. When you go into a room, the lights are not going to pop on. You need to push a button to turn them on. Now when you leave, they're going to go off because they do have the occupancy sensors. But rather than have the lights automatically go on, because sometimes you go into a room, you really don't need the lights. You got enough natural light coming in, right? So even though we do things like that and we have fixed windows, Mass Saves comes back at the end of the project when it's open for a year. They take a look at your 12 months of utility bills and they say, how much energy have you used in the building? If it is, I'm going to say compliant, but really it's like substantially compliant, right? We could be off a little bit, but not off a lot. Then they give you the other half of your money. If it's off a lot, you don't get the other half of your money. So I think what we could do, and maybe this will satisfy some of it, is talk with our mechanical engineers to see if there's a way to have, because another very good thing to do in a well building or a lead building is to have controls that people can actually control things, so they can turn a fan, they could turn the fan up, they could turn the fan down in terms of ventilation. Again, it's more, it uses a little bit more energy, but I'm sure you've seen these. Like sometimes you go into a hotel room and you turn a timer. So when you go in there, you turn the timer and it turns the exhaust fan on, and the timer then shuts it off. We could have something like that.
Like a supplemental fan in the ceiling.
Yeah, well, all
That's
it will
tied
do
into
is
the whole
turn
system.
up, right, it's gonna turn up the ventilation for that room.
But I mean, that would be like a bathroom fan, and I think those aren't exactly the most efficient way to air out a small space.
Yeah.
Does
Well,
each individual bunk room have control of its own climate, or are they all on one zone?
Actually, I think they do have their own.
And with VRF, it's easy to just zone everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think each one has a cassette in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a great point that you bring up, because I think that if we're talking about me feeling comfortable sleeping at a certain temperature and you feeling more comfortable sleeping at a different temperature, we should have that control. And then at the same time, if I need to ventilate the room that I'm in, that was the other reason to go to the single rooms. Not only did they save space, but it takes care of several things, one of which you're talking about. The other one was the whole gender neutral thing. And so what we can do is just go back to the mechanical engineers and say, here's the concern, how do we solve it? And then if all else fails, then I think you can always put in operable windows. I mean, that was just a decision that we talked about earlier in terms of energy.
I mean, like, I approached this from the standpoint of what would I want in a building?
Yeah.
And early on, I had said that the windows should be, or the bunk room should be on the exterior.
Yeah.
And if we were gonna exclude opening windows, that wasn't for natural light, that was for the ability for natural ventilation. If we were going to exclude opening windows, that would have opened up significantly more design possibilities where we could keep them in the core, in the center, or whatever, and then have office space or other space that would benefit from natural light there. Because you could argue having natural light in a bunk room, like now you're gonna have to supply curtains or whatever, shades.
Yeah.
If we put them in the center, you wouldn't. And if we had excluded natural ventilation from the beginning, then that might have swayed us. But there's,
We do have a couple of bunk rooms that are not on the exterior wall.
Was this, the topic of operable windows, was this discussed in the working group?
It was discussed at the building committee too.
Yeah, so I mean, presumably the department staff itself has weighed in on this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the chief, there were a couple different conversations that the chief had with the whole staff, one of which is the trailer that we just talked about. The other one's the operable windows.
I mean, I'm not talking about,
the
I mean, I
fitness
think
room.
it seems like maybe 4 to 6 operable windows. I don't think that's a high
Yeah.
ask.
Oh, no, I completely understand, so
Yeah.
I think what we wanna do is just, we'll talk to the chief and we'll
I-
talk to mechanical
No,
engineers.
I don't think it's the cost of the windows is the issue, it's the performance of the building, right? So the way you get to a super performing building is to have a super tight and controlled environment, super tight envelope with a controlled environment. If you have an operable window, you no longer have a controlled environment. So that's the argument for having non-operable windows. You have a tighter envelope, you have a controlled environment.
I understand
You have
that.
a better performing building.
We're gonna have 14 by 12-foot windows on the bay, 8 or 10 of them.
Right.
If you do fix the operable windows, do you do demand control ventilation then? So you can have it like an interlock where it's not.
I mean, I don't think someone's just gonna go in and be like, oh, every single day I work, I just leave the thing wide open the entire day. I don't think that's the goal or what would happen.
But they could. right?
Yeah,
Somebody-
the
somebody
problem is
probably-
that they could.
Yeah.
But that's something that is even,
This should be go out on a call.
I don't tend to, there are easy ways that administratively that can be handled, the firehouses are cleaned every single morning. So one element of that could be, just go through and make sure all the windows are shut, all 4 of them.
The good thing, to fight the performance drop, if the mechanical system knows the window's open, through measuring carbon monoxide or whatever, carbon monoxide, it can slow down the exhaust rate. I don't know if that gets super complicated or what, but.
Only because we're venting through the DOAS units. So the dedicated outdoor air system, DOAS, sorry. So these dedicated outdoor air systems, it is tied into both exhaust and ventilation through heat wheels. So we've got heat recovery on there as well. So really, as we're exhausting the building, we're bringing in the ventilation. The amount of ventilation that we're bringing in differs with a damper, and that's based on the CO2 sensors for certain spaces, right? So like a bunk room wouldn't necessarily have a CO2 sensor because it's designed for one person. So we kind of know, there's no fluctuation there. But when you have other spaces like the kitchen, for like this space here, or the training room, or the offices where you can have multiple people in there, that's where the occupancy sensors, the CO2 sensors come in handy, because we can design it for one person. Also, the regularly occupied load is one person in the office or two people in the office. If we call people together because we want to have a shift discussion or something like that, what happens is the mechanical system picks up on it right away because of the amount of CO2 and brings in more fresh air. So when you have a big group in your training room, it's bringing in more fresh air. As soon as that satisfies itself and goes away, it shuts it down, right? Until the reading comes back. So
Can you do that on a small scale, like for a bunk?
you can definitely do it on a small
Because
scale.
that's what I see the problem, if you have the window open, it's cold outside, you have cold air coming in,
I
that's
don't
getting
want to
cold.
keep the heat on, yeah.
Yeah.
But, those systems are great at installation. Are they gonna work 15 years from now?
Yeah, well, so that's the piece of the maintenance that we're talking about. And the other, there are certain areas of the country where they want the fixed windows just because of the smog and the outside air isn't all that great, and they filter the crap out of it using these same types of, that's a technical term.
I know.
Yeah, so they, and they filter it because what they're trying to do is clean the air, and again, when you do lead in well buildings, those filtering systems become pretty robust, and to your point, Justin, they've got to be maintained. And so, this building will need to be maintained. We're using very simple systems though. I think the dedicated outdoor air systems, it doesn't get any simpler than it basically a heating and cooling element, which is your VRF piece of it, and it's a fan. So it's not like, we're not dealing with compressors in there. We're not dealing with anything that is difficult to program or can really sort of hit a snag, if you will. It really is kind of just a glorified fan, and that's what's bringing in the ventilation. But I think it's an important thing that you bring up. So let us go back to our engineers and just say, if we keep the window fixed, how do we solve this? And then we'll come back and, like I said, we can always make the windows operable. It's just a discussion of,
I think putting in like a replacement window that's operable after it's built is a non-starter. So that's just a fantasy that won't end up happening.
no, you're not gonna change the windows out after the
Right.
window's built. After the building's built.
No, but I just mean like to not allow that to enter the discussion.
Yeah.
But, if the HVAC system doesn't work for whatever reason, and it's like, oh, we'll have the contractor out here in 4 days to fix it, like it needs a new widget, and like, it's the middle of the heat wave in the summer, like, what do we do? How, where does everybody crowd at that point? Does that then negate the purpose of having private bunk rooms? Does that
So how it's set up, this is actually getting a little off topic, but I
Sorry,
think
I
it's,
don't mean to
no,
derail
I
you.
think it's important because one thing we're trying to do is give you the biggest bang for your buck, right? And one thing that we just reached out to Mass Saves and their technical consultant about was we had a lot of resistant heat around the building, and that was for exactly what you're talking about. So, one of the condensers goes down or one of the VRF cassettes goes down, how do we keep temperature in the room, right? So we've got this, what was called redundancy. We talked about this a little while back. So basically you have two heating systems in the building, right? The VRF works all the time. If one of the cassettes go down, we have resistant heat. We're actually in the process right now of getting rid of all that resistant heat and increasing the capacity of the VRF system. So what you're gonna have out in back of the building is 2 or 3 large units, like you have over at the police station. And what that does is all of these cassettes are, attached to that. So if one goes down, it doesn't, like the whole system's not dead,
Right.
if you will. And the way that the rooms are designed, they're next to one another. Your hallway outside actually has heating and cooling. And you have the 9 rooms that we've been talking about, right? So you just open up one of those doors and we've got our freeze protection. But as we've gone through that analysis of what if we upsize the VRF and use some, other types of units, we can get rid of all this redundancy. What we're trying to do is also take care of what you're talking about. Because that's the first topic of discussion with VRF systems, right? If a cassette goes down, it's not like someone's got this thing sitting on a shelf somewhere to come and replace it. It's gonna be a couple of days, so what do you do, in the interim? Now, the other thing that Matt brought to the table was this exact type of system, or very similar, is at the police station. So he's very familiar with it. And it's kind of a little bit more dependent, or, a little bit more dependable, I should say, than sort of a traditional system. And it's the same system that gives you heating and cooling, so it's not like you have a heating plant that breaks down or a cooling plant that breaks down, it's all in one.
And they're controlled by the individuals in the building, like,
Yeah.
it's not like the police station sets the temperature for the fire station, or like, they can't lock out the thing in October or whatever.
No, so it's actually kind of both. So you do have a building automation system, but you also have thermal control. And the building automation system, and I've met the chief, I'm sure he's gonna have a password to that. Because I think what you're getting at is everybody's gonna have the ability to turn up the heat, turn down the heat. We can talk to them about the ventilation, like is there a ventilation control that we can put on? And I know that there is, right, because lead buildings, it's one of the lead points if you're doing a lead building. So if we allow them to have ventilation control, how does that tie into the system?
Right.
And, it's just a question, and then they're able to turn the heat up, I think, 3 degrees higher than the set point, or 3 degrees lower than the set point. If you want to adjust it higher or lower for that, you can actually program it, frankly. So if I worked Monday and Tuesday and I'm on my 48-hour shift, or however the shifts work, we could actually program my room to be a set point on Mondays and Tuesdays. Like, that's how sophisticated yet simple the system is. But even so, it's just a matter of somebody getting on the system with a password and just jumping up the heat in that room, or lowering the heat in that room because of personal requests.
I'm certainly not advocating for increasing energy use, but most of the firehouses I've been in have air conditioners that run 365 days a year in the bunk room, so
Yeah,
it's not like 50 degrees, people aren't happy with it.
right. So here's the good news for that, though, because you have a BAS system, if in fact you run into that, right? So we don't even want to turn the heat on. Good. Because there's two, and we do this a lot, like call centers and things like that, where the computer load is so big in the room that the heat actually doesn't turn on because you got all the monitors and computers. But you're using the ventilation, right? So we're bringing in 100% outdoor air during the spring and during the fall when the temperatures outside meet that requirement. The heat never turns on, and it's only the air conditioning, to your point. So that would be a good thing.
It's a cool thing about VRF too, is you're just shifting the heat. You can
Yeah.
have spaces right next to each other that are all different temperatures.
Yep.
VRF is perfect for that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just know that was a thing that I've heard a lot of people complain about in new firehouses. That's like one of the probably like in the top 3 of complaints that people make.
Okay.
I want to avoid a mistake like that here.
Sure.
And I understand that might go counter to the leads or whatnot, or mass saves, but there has to be some kind of medium in there that can satisfy both ideas.
I guess another thought, not quite in the bunk room, I understand the immediacy of the bunk room, but I mean, we do have access to some outdoor spaces here that may not be present in other firehouses as well, so something to consider.
Yep. Okay.
Again, sorry to derail.
No, it's,
2 meetings
I think it's
every
a-
quarter I talk at.
it's a good conversation. I think it's a good conversation, and it's an important one. So this next slide is, we talked a little bit about the fitness room today, and again, once we get all these samples down here, you all can go take a look at them. And one of the things that the chief brought up is we're gonna compare this material right here. This is a fully recycled, they basically take old tires and they turn it into this flooring. This flooring is the same thickness, 9 millimeters, but there's a different type of flooring, which is very similar, except it has more natural rubber in it. This is a little bit more slippery, and so the chief would like to see like which is more slippery and less slippery. You know, we're gonna find out exactly what the cost differential is, but both are designed for weight rooms or fitness rooms. Both are designed to absorb the exercise. We'll find out exactly what the maintenance and things like that is on it, how easy it's to clean, and then we'll make a selection. So again, it's just things like that that we went through today. And then the exterior siding, what we're thinking about right now is having some kind of clad window. The clad window would have wood on the inside and either fiberglass or aluminum on the outside. We're working with manufacturers right now to find out if we can find 3. So here are the requirements, right? Number 1 is energy efficiency. We beat that to death throughout every piece of the building. But, so the exterior doesn't need to be painted, right, or maintained. So that's why we're heading towards either the pre-finished aluminum or the pre-finished fiberglass. But they also have to comply with the large missile test for 140 mile-an-hour winds. So that's the rub, right, that we're having right now with manufacturers, is we're trying to find the right kind of exterior. So I won't call it maintenance-free, but maintenance-friendly material. Also get the U value, which is your thermal value of the window, to be as low as we need it to be for the energy modeling that we've done, and then have it meet the test. So we get the same situation going on with the exterior doors, the man doors that you go in and out. We get the same situation going on with the overhead doors. So, and then the siding that we're thinking about putting on is this true exterior siding, and it's a urethane product. It's made out of fly ash. It takes paint better than wood. So yes, you have to paint it, but you don't have to paint it as often as a wood siding. It routs and has trims exactly like wood, so it's really gonna sort of lend itself to the community of Norfolk, while at the same time being a product that you don't have to paint as much, and it's completely insect resistant and things like that, rot resistant and so forth. So as soon as we get
proprietary product, or are there multiple manufacturers?
so the equals to this are a fiber cement product. But, you know, this is something that you might wanna consider, as a proprietary item. The reason being is fiber cement, there's 2 types of fiber cement. We're all familiar with Hardy plank, or Certainty used to have a product, I think it's Plysun now, so Certainty became Plysun. So that's one type of fiber cement. Another type of fiber cement is called like, I can't think of the word right now, but it's like Equitone, I think it's Equitone. And Equitone is a high density fiber cement. So this is more equal with the high density fiber cement and not the fiber cement everybody's used to. And the difference is the fiber cement that everybody's used to can absorb water, right? You constantly have to paint prime all the cuts and everything else that go along with it. Equitone, you do not. It's high density fiber cement, it's completely water resistant. And that's what this product is. So.
Does it need to be painted every so many years?
Yep. Yep. So, you know, I think I'm sure it's in the product guide. I can send the product guide to you so people
Please.
can, so
Yep.
people can read it. It's, I'll misquote this, but if you paint a house a traditional wood siding every 10 or 15 years, this gives you like 5 or 10 years more, you know, so.
Everybody's this pretty much the same. Was any consideration given to any kind of composite siding?
Yeah, the true exterior is the composite type siding.
No, like not like a vinyl, but like a Trex decking type material. They've started using that with
Oh,
siding
really?
now. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's a
never have to paint kind of material, and the cost is fairly similar, but I don't know how it will stand up from like a building like this. It's more residential.
Okay. Well, we'll take a look at it. This is, this true exterior, even though it's on commercial buildings, people put it on their homes.
Yeah. We just did one. It was called Everlast siding, and it's
Everlast? Okay.
Yeah, it's it's not vinyl. It's a PVC thicker material. It's feels like wood, but you never have to paint it. It's got light against fading and all that kind of stuff. I just know how much it costs to paint a building that size.
Sure. So one thing we are trying to do is stay away from PVC, but
Yeah.
we can, if it's a composite PVC, we can certainly take a look at it, because a lot of those are actually, they're made with the polyvinyl resins, but they use sawdust in them. So we can, because, see, AZEC and restoration
Yeah.
millwork, those are like the true PVC, and they come in actual siding. You can get vertical siding, board and batten siding from those manufacturers as well. Okay. So that's all I had on the materials. We'll send you the product sheet for that.
Great.
We'll definitely check with the engineers for all of those concerns, and we'll talk to the chief again and just say, if we're gonna do something, let's do it.
Side note here, when's the last time we got a set of floor plans? I can't find one, that's why I'm asking.
I would say at the end of SD, actually.
Yeah, schematic design, we got a full set, but that,
Yeah.
I mean, that was a month ago,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, well, we'll give you an updated set of plans.
Yeah, ship them to me, I'll
Sure.
send them around to everyone.
Absolutely. Do you,
Also, before I forget, you know what, never mind, I'll get to it later.
okay.
Stay on task.
All right, so that's interior and exterior, we're done.
Okay. Updated list of cost-effective changes, so Blake sent out the list this morning to everyone. I assume I think that was updated through Monday, it was dated.
Yes.
Yeah, we spent so much time on the details of interior, we didn't really talk about it today.
Right, but I'm going to share my screen again. All right, so here's the list that we have. So some of you who weren't here last meeting, what we've done is we started to compile a list. And this list is things that were removed like from the initial programming stage, right? Now, everything that you see here in red that says decisions made since schematic design was completed is us working in design development to continue the mantra of build what we need only, and kind of continue to refine things both from an economical point of view as well as a design point of view. So the list of rooms, two things happened since schematic design. We got rid of the water entry room.
What's the water entry room? Sorry for.
So the main water line that comes into the building not only comes in for domestic, but also comes in for the fire suppression system. And typically you put that into a room. If you were to have a fire pump, you would also have, that'd be a rated room with a door to the outside, right? Because you get the fire pump in there. But in this particular instance, we don't need a fire pump. So really all we have is the check valve and some pressure gauges on there. And everyone thought, well, first of all, it doesn't need to be in a room. So let's save the money on the walls and the doors and the door hardware and the light switches and so forth. But the other thing is the chief thinks it's a good thing for the fire department to see, be familiar with, and they can even use it for any kind of training that they want to do.
Is it just a wet system, or is it wet and dry, or?
We'll have a combination wet-dry system. And then bidirectional amplifier closet. This is obviously the radios that fire apparatus would use. And what we're gonna do is rate the MDF room, the proper rating, which I believe is 2 hours. So that you can have your BDA equipment in there, as well as your MDF equipment in there. And again, saving walls, light fixtures, things like that. Door, yeah.
Ceiling.
So it sounds like we're picking up every nickel, as they said at the last meeting, and Steve said that's exactly what we're doing.
Nickels and dimes.
Spatial efficiencies, you're all familiar with these. It's just us now keeping a running list. So sustainability, we again reduced the number of windows around the building as we've been updating. To your point, we've got 14-foot bay doors with glass in them, so we've gotten rid of the clear story above them. And so that was a decision. We reduced the amount of underground stormwater drainage. We've made our rain gardens bigger. And so what that's allowed us to do is treat and store a lot of the water above ground and not have to do it underground. These other things you already knew.
We need to take off number 3 there.
What's that?
We are reusing the leach field.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Leach field. Sorry.
And then we removed the elevator venting. Again, this is, you know, we've got the VRF throughout the entire building. So we're gonna make sure that our elevator machine room doesn't overheat. And that way we get rid of the venting. Another, kind of 2 things. One is the cost of it for the fans and so forth. And the other thing is energy efficiency, right? We're not just sucking air out of the building.
They just won't, it's not an exterior wall, right? You can't just put a grate there.
Right.
Right.
Right. And then in working with the town, in all the departments, we're continuing to reduce things. So for instance, what you'll see here is, which is not on the list yet because we gotta go to planning board, but we just met with the town inspector and the planning, and Rich McCarthy, I should say, and we went out there and took a look at the green belt. And everywhere where we have existing vegetation, they're fine with us either reducing it or eliminating it. So that was a pretty good savings. Manual fixtures instead of the sort of handless fixtures or touchless fixtures.
There are a couple places you probably do want the touchless one, like in the EMS room, if there's a sink in there, or in like the decon space, but I don't think in like the regular, normally occupied spaces you need them.
Okay.
So maybe a couple around, but or like the public bathroom probably should have automatic.
Yeah, that's what we talked
fixtures.
about.
Okay, sorry.
No, don't be.
And then, you know, number 10 here, at our last meeting, we talked about removing some columns, and some piers, and some beams, and like we said, in what happened at the 1-story piece of it is we removed it all. And then we still removed, I think, 8 or 9 of them in the 2-story piece. And this is just a matter of, again, going back, looking at the structural models as we're developing the design, and saying, you know, rather than spanning 20 feet, what if we span 40 feet? How deep does the beam get? What's the weight on it? Because you pay for this stuff by tonnage, right? And then you just figure it out and say, hey, you know, we can save money. It's actually saving money to get a deeper, a little bit heavier beam than it is to put these columns in with the footings and foundations and so forth. The other things that we did was the rear south-facing overhead door doesn't really need a canopy. And so for now, we've taken it off. The canopy is still remain in the front. So on a rainy day, if they want to open those doors so that the heating system goes off or something like that, because they're using a natural ventilation, you'll have the canopies to protect from the rain. And then the card access system and the CCTV system has been simplified or reduced, if you will. So what the chief decided was some doors are still gonna have the card access, like for instance, all the perimeter doors. But then a lot of the interior doors, because they have the combination card reader and code, we're just gonna go with the code device. And this way here, it's basically a mechanical lock on the door. There's no wiring, not attached to the system. So every door that they wanna be able to decide, you know, who came in on Saturday at noon time, right? They're gonna be able to track that. But some of the other spaces, that he said there was just no need for it.
We said we removed the canopy in the back, or we're
Yeah.
thinking about it?
We had removed it. For now. This is design development,
It's unfortunate.
you know, we can take a look at it.
We're just trying to be really spare where we can.
What does the canopy cost?
Actually, we're not,
I'm just curious.
yeah, as we're going through this, we're not really putting prices. It's gotta be I don't know, $9,000
I
maybe?
would say 10, so.
10, so somewhere between
It's a
9
few
and
nickels and
11.
dimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, if you'd said like 1,200, I'd be like, yeah, it doesn't really matter, but.
You got multiple trades involved, yeah.
yeah. And so then it's the, you know, the need for a safe harbor alarm system, so we talked a little bit about that today, and to your point, Aaron, you know, last week we had it taken out, but we're checking again today, and now we're gonna have a discussion with dispatch. So, it's on the list, but it may go back in at a reduced version of what it is right now. What's that?
Well, I was just gonna ask what the purpose of that was.
If somebody runs into the station, somebody can push a button that locks the door behind them and alerts the station that there's somebody in the building. So, in this particular case, it's actually dispatch that's getting that call, not people in the building. And so what we talked about with the chief today is if we keep that system in, then the whole building's gonna be notified. So why is it going to dispatch? And the answer to that is it needs to go to dispatch, because that's, you know, the type of station, because there are times when there's actually nobody at the station because they're all out on a call. So if that took place at that point in time, it's gotta go to dispatch. And then the conversation, because we're gonna meet next Wednesday with dispatch anyway, at noontime, about the low voltage stuff. At that time, we're gonna bring it back up and say, what's the best way to do this? So is it just a vestibule thing that dispatch gets notified? Or do we even need it? Because maybe there's a device in the door, like a prop open device, or, you know, some kind of alarm like that, where after hours, and you can program it. So after 5 o'clock in the evening, when dispatch is supposed to take over, if somebody comes through that door, you could have a simple announcement, you know, like they do now, right? You open the door, you come in as a sensor, and it rings in a certain number of rooms, you know, but it's not this sort of head-end safe harbor system. And we'll talk to the electrical engineers too, because, you know, if it's a real savings, then it's something to further discuss. And if the electrical engineer says it's not really a simple, you know, that much of a savings, then, you know, we won't talk about it. But right now, the electrical engineer thought it was something that should definitely be on the list of, you know, if we really need it, let's do it, but if we don't, we really don't.
How many other projects have you done that have them?
We've done them a lot, but we've also done a lot of public safety. So what that means is when you come running into the vestibule and you push that button and it locks the door behind you, that door is also bulletproof, right? Because it's kind of a police station.
But it only works if you push a button.
Only works if you push a button. So you'd have to come in and hit the button. And then the other thing is, you know, there'd be a button on the wall with some kind of signage and everything else that it would make it pretty clear that this is like a panic button.
And how do we unpanic the system?
I have no idea. I think it has to be unlocked. So, you know, that's the other, you know, that's the catch-22, right? You're not supposed to, and I'm not all that familiar with these safe harbor systems when it comes to that, because in the world of other buildings aside from public safety, it's against code to build a man trap, right? So how you undo that system is you actually have to open the door. So if this system works the way I suspect it works, which is you push the button and it locks the door behind me, I can still get out. You just can't get in, right?
And unfortunately, we'd like to think that bad things don't happen in a small community like this, but they do.
I mean, unless it's a code requirement or an ask of the department, I don't know, I don't see the value in it.
Well, that's just it. So, you know, we've asked the department, and we're gonna meet next Wednesday with everybody on site and just figure out, is this something that we need?
And they had an incident. They had an example of an occurrence, so it sort of hits home a little bit more, but it's up for discussion.
So that's basically where we're at with
That's
this.
one thing to add to that. Keep in mind that the police station is nowhere near the center of town either. So if there was anywhere in the center of town to have a safe harbor location, it would be the fire station.
Good point.
But the doors are all key card entry and self-closing and self-locking
Correct.
anyway, as like a standard.
Yeah, well, so what?
Someone can get into the lobby to at
Yeah,
least try to, you know.
In the
is it-
lobby,
Yeah,
right, yeah.
and so they could it could lock behind that person. So if someone's, someone's trying to get safe and someone's chasing them, they can at least get to that point and be able to reach dispatch, even if everyone else is out on a call,
Okay,
to say, hey, help, this bad person's chasing me,
that makes a little bit more sense.
I need.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's actually the vestibule. you know, cause you come in that little airlock.
So it's just one door.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Oh,
literally,
I'm
so-
picturing
lobby.
like you're trying to Fort
Right.
Knox the building here. I was like,
right, so it's just this one door, and that's how the conversation started. So the conversation started with, you know, what is this safe harbor alarm? Is it just this one door? The answer is yes. But then we have all these monitoring devices throughout the entire building that tells the fire department that there's someone there, when there may not even be someone from the fire department in the station. And the other thought was that this station's a little bit different in that it's being designed as a dark station, which means all those calls go to dispatch anyway. So it's just that little piece of it, of asking, you know, the chief and talking to dispatch and saying, is it needed, and if so, how does it get set up? Is there another way to do this? Do we need this type of system, or are there other types of systems? Because there's already a call box in the vestibule that allows people to call dispatch. You know?
That makes a lot more sense the way you explained it now. That's not what I was picturing
Yeah.
when we were talking about it before.
Okay. So that's the list.
Got a couple of comments on the list.
Yep.
First of all, I think it's a great list to have, as we've discussed. I think nitpicky comments, the first section's called List of Rooms Removed from the Initial Program.
Yep.
I mean, I think we might want to semantically go even further than that and say List of Rooms Removed from the Wish List Program.
Okay.
And then the second section is called List of Spatial Efficiencies. I think we should take credit for the fact that they've been discussed and planned, so I was recommending List of Planned Spatial Efficiencies. That just seems a little bit more proactive, I think.
Sure.
Is there value in assigning a square footage to each room on the first list?
That was my next comment, I agree. I think the list is great on itself, but we have to have the value, which is the area.
Okay.
So for the first section, it would be the area collective. The second section would be for the area saved,
Yeah.
right, or made more efficient. And then I can't remember when you were going through this, if you said you were gonna add the site plantings or not, but it'd be good to add the site plantings.
As soon as because we have a question taking place tonight at 8 o'clock, and then we've got planning board on the 14th. Actually, no, the planning board won't get decided for a while, actually, because we're gonna submit that in May for the June meeting. And then we're kinda hoping that the June meeting.
Maybe we could put site plantings hopeful.
Yeah.
But, you know, it does sort of beg the question, someone may pick up on the site planting and say, well, it's great that the town's bending its rules for itself. So, you know, we should be prepared to answer that question. You
Yeah.
know, it's not that we just didn't do it, I mean, we went through all the proper channels and made a responsible decision for the specific site and
For
the
the
town.
taxpayers.
Right,
Right.
so, I mean, we should be, maybe that's something we wanna put on the frequently asked question list, right?
Yeah, and actually, you bring up a great point, because we're not bending the rules, because there are some things that we've asked and the answer's been no. And pitch roofs being one of them, right? So, what we are doing is taking, the avenue that's actually listed in the bylaw. So what the bylaw says specific about the green belt is, if there's existing plantings, then the planning board has, by their discretion, the ability to say, there's already plants here, you don't have to plant plants because there's plants. Now, when we were out on site, there are no plants between the fire station and the church.
Put them in.
So all of that's getting, so all of that's, all of that's getting installed,
Tulips or something.
you know, in complete.
We should definitely make that a frequently asked question then.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, we
nip
should
that one in
definitely
the
do
bud.
that. Yep. Okay.
That's it from there.
Anything else about the list, or?
No, I think just to tack on to that, I think only this list came out, but there is a room by room list as well.
Yep.
That goes through it in much more detail.
It's about 81 pages or
Right.
something like that.
But it's still, like that.
Go to the website.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that list, you know, and you might see some things here, and that was the attached room by room list that wasn't attached because it's a complete mess, because we've highlighted all these different things, right? So in that list, the chief is looking into doing things differently, and that's one color highlight. The other color highlight are things that we're still trying to find. In other words, the windows are a perfect example. You know, it's gotta meet the height, the impact rating, it's gotta meet the spatial, the efficiency, it's gotta meet the maintenance friendly. So, you know, we're trying to still find those products. And then other things are highlighted, like we just talked about the safe harbor. You know, they may or may not stay in there, and other stuff's getting cut. And then other stuff is gonna be left up to the discretion of the town, right? So when we go out to buy furniture, and in the next few weeks, we're gonna actually put together a furniture list, room by room, because that's where we're gonna decide who's buying this and who's buying that. And, you know, even though we have outlets for, say, 9 TVs, are we really buying 9 TVs, or are we buying 2? And, you know, over the years, things can get either purchased or donated or brought in or whatever.
Like I said, I know our place, like, we pay money each year to fund our, we call it the house fund. We
Yeah.
buy a lot of the stuff that we need to run the house. TVs and furniture are historically included in the things that the firefighters purchase. Like, we pay for our own cable, our own internet, and that kind of stuff, so I don't think that's necessarily unique to my department. It might be, but.
Well, they've been in a trailer for 20 years, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say the creature comforts over there aren't so great.
Review report of the sewer manhole tank and pump chamber inspection. I think that was sent out today as well.
Yep.
Been talked about already. I think this was just the official letter. Unfortunately, the 2 septic tanks are not in good condition. I think one was in very poor condition and one was on its way out.
Yeah, so I've got, so the notes here is that, a couple of things. Number one, the ground cover above them is gonna get a lot deeper. And because I'm gonna try to describe this for everybody at home too. So the top of the tank is certain feet below pavement. And then you have sort of a collar that builds up to the sewer manhole that you see in the pavement, if you will. Well, all of those are completely deteriorated and they're part of the tank. In addition to that, the lines coming into the tank, there's also deterioration right there at the tank. And when they cleaned out the tank, you know, they found that everything's sort of in fair condition, fair to not so good condition. So the big question is, when do they need to get replaced, right? And, you know, from an engineering point of view and from the company that went out there and checked it, they're like, we'd hate to see you finish this project and 7 years later have to go rip up the new pavement and put new tanks in. So it was just a matter of, what we really wanted to check out was, are they gonna last another 20 years? Right, that was the big question we wanted to answer. And we got back, the 2,000 gallon H20 tank, and I'm quoting right now, was found to be in okay to poor condition. So it kinda makes it a.
But it doesn't say how long it's gonna last.
Right.
Right, so I mean,
Yeah, it's kinda like, you know, get the crystal ball out.
Have we got out in front of this and figured out what the new system's gonna cost?
We're just replacing the tank, everything else stays. So this is literally a tank, so it's a couple $1,000s for the tank.
That's not that bad. I thought it was gonna be way higher than that.
That's just the tank, that's not
It's
excavation,
just the
installation,
tank,
you know,
right,
all
so
that, yeah.
Well, the tank and the associated parts and pieces,
the
the collars, the.
Yes, yeah. So it's the tank, it's the collars, it's the, you know, the rim, I guess, and then the cover itself.
I was picturing a 6-figure hit here, so.
No, this is like, this was one of those things where, you know, yes, something might cost a few $1,000s, $5,000, let's say, you know. We should look into it now, because we don't wanna finish this whole thing and, you know, find out 5 years, 10 years from now, we gotta go fix a $5,000 item. It's like-
And it's now 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then now it's $10,000, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's-
Yeah, I was gonna say, cost
I
of
think we should
living is
confirm
going
what the
up.
price is. I mean, if it's 5,000, I think it's a no-brainer. If it's 50, 500, it's a different question.
Yeah, I think it needs to get incorporated into the estimate and then.
Oh, absolutely, we can definitely get this estimated, yeah.
Well, it'll be part of the GD estimate.
Yeah, but we can easily flag it you know, and just say, you
I
know,
would
this was the thing that, and then you can still decide, cause it'll be a DD estimate.
Should keep that canopy, make it an address.
You kinda want the canopy, huh?
I do. Not sure if I want it more than Operable Windows.
I see a rock, paper, scissors,
We could put
situation
an-
happening at some
An umbrella
point.
holder by the back door.
Put canopies over all the operable windows.
Yeah, there you go, now we're talking.
All right, any other discussions on the septic tanks?
I read that report very differently, so I'm glad, I read it as a disaster.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting.
Glad it wasn't.
Review commissioning agent proposals for HVAC services.
Yep. So 2 weeks ago, we put out an RFP for HVAC commissioning services for the project to 5 different companies. Fitzmyer and Tachi, Collier's Engineering, WSP, RFS Engineering, and Sparhawk. We got 4 proposals back. Sparhawk contacted me and said that they were committed to other projects and that they were not gonna submit a proposal, which I thought was good because we really don't want someone that's gonna come in and not provide us the service we want. The lowest number from the proposals was WSP. It came in at $42,945. Our budget that we were carrying was $50,000. So again, if you're going to go through Vertex, there'd be 10% markup on that. If you're gonna go direct, then there wouldn't. Second lowest was Collier's Engineering. The number was $49,796, and these numbers were due today at 3 o'clock. So I have not gone through the details of the proposals yet to make sure that we're talking apples for apples. So I'm just giving you the numbers at this point. Third was RFS Engineering at $57,000 even, and Fitzmyer and Tachi was $57,200. So they were basically in the range. We've worked with WSP before. Actually, we've worked with WSP, RFS, and Fitzmyer and Tachi, but WSP we've worked with, and they have no issues with their services. So what I'm going to do is go through the proposals in detail, make sure that there's no red flags. But if there isn't, then we'll get someone on board. And part of the requirements were for them to be available to sit in on the Mass Saves conversations, both in DD and CD, and then give their input on the systems being proposed. And then obviously the normal commissioning items, which would be during bidding if there's any questions, but generally there's really nothing for them to weigh in on bidding, but we sort of throw that in there. And then once construction starts, they review the submittals in conjunction with the mechanical engineer, and once there's actually something to look at mechanically, we start bringing them in for periodic reviews during construction. And again, they don't have to be there in the beginning. We only want them to be looking at stuff that pertains to them. And then the big portion is the commissioning and acceptance phase, and then there's a warranty phase and closeout. So I'll go through those and
Yeah.
get you back any other information to distribute to them.
Yeah, I think it would be, I know we discussed before to have it be through Vertex. I think my opinion is still to have to be the case.
Yep, that's fine. Just want to offer it up.
So, yeah, so I think what will be good from my perspective is if you go through the proposals, make sure everything is in order, everybody's carrying the same thing, and then a recommendation of who you would go with.
Right.
So if it's WSP or if it's one of the other bidders, depending on what they carried in their scope versus what we asked them to
Right.
carry. So, okay.
Just a question, are you comfortable with them just reporting it and choosing one and going ahead because it's within what we budgeted, or did you?
No, I'm thinking of a letter of recommendation and then we can approve.
So that's the reason I'm asking, we wouldn't meet again till May 11th, if we met.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
And I just don't know what the timing is for them to participate in the work is my question, is the reason I ask.
I don't think we set up a follow-up conversation with Mass Saves and Eversource yet, have we?
We haven't yet, but I do know that their requirement is to get the commissioning agent on
Right.
board, like, at the beginning of DD, and we're heading towards the end, so.
The sooner the better.
Is this on
Well, could we do one of those situations where we vote to approve a number, or we vote to approve, a recommendation, and then we make an executive decision?
I was just gonna bring that up, maybe it's you, me, and
Sure.
Blythe that, or Todd,
Yeah.
that makes that decision, and we say, we're comfortable going, we budgeted $50,000, maybe we say within 10% of that, $55,000, and if it's more than that, we have to come back to the committee.
And that essentially covers 1 and 2.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
Okay.
I like that. That makes
Everyone
sense.
comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that'll kind of move it along a little bit.
You wanna take a vote on that?
Sure.
Well, just,
Yeah, no, you're right, I should. So, I'll ask for a vote that the committee allow myself, the vice chair, and town administrator to negotiate the price of the commissioning agent to bring them on board. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, I think we're unanimous. All right, so yeah, send something along to Blythe as soon as you have it.
Yep.
So, okay. Discuss preparation for spring town meeting.
sorry, who seconded that? I just didn't get that.
Me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Discuss preparation for the Springtown meeting presentation. So I guess a little bit of background for those of you that weren't at the last meeting. We were going to have the community meeting. We're planning our next community meeting. We talked about having it tonight. An idea that I brought up at the last meeting was actually to have it shortly after town meeting, so that when I make a brief speech at town meeting, I could say next week or the week after, we're gonna have our next community meeting, and maybe we get a little more attendance. I don't know, maybe not, but
It's worth a shot.
it's worth a shot.
But to that point, we're making our best faith effort to be as transparent, open, and inviting as we can. What could be more inviting than extending an invitation at town meeting and then holding a meeting shortly thereafter?
Right. So, town meeting is on the 10th. Blythe was able to book the library for the 18th,
Mm-hmm.
Which is not our normal meeting night. Well, it's a Wednesday, it's just an off Wednesday. So normally we would meet on the 11th and the 25th. Instead, we're at least gonna meet on the 18th. I was gonna suggest.
This is May?
Right.
Yes, May. So town meeting's on May 10th. Our community meeting will be May 18th. Hopefully that works for everyone.
I'm not available,
Okay.
sorry.
Hopefully that works for everyone else.
But, yeah, not available.
Okay.
I won't be
For-
as well. because-
Well, we knew you were out.
I'm around.
Aaron and Chris, does that? Yeah, for you guys. I mean, you're gonna be out most of May anyway. So I guess the thing I was gonna.
If remote might not work, but if it does for you, it's possible. I mean, just say it's possible.
I'll keep it in mind.
Four signal, right?
You
You
can
can
mute-
wear the headphones.
You can mute the baby.
You know.
I was considering that maybe we go 3 weeks in between meetings and possibly have the community meeting starting at 7:30 on the 18th. We can meet at 6 for an hour and a half, then have the community meeting after. and we would basically skip our meetings on the 11th and the 25th, and instead of meeting on the 18th. I guess my only concern is if that's gonna put us in a bind. Obviously, we'll make a decision on the commissioning agent outside of this, but is that gonna put us in a bind for anything else?
I don't think so. I think it gives us time to get all the materials down to the fire station. I think it gives us time to talk about the items that were brought up today, to talk to the chief about them and the working group. You know, it gives us an opportunity to, you know, I just think there's a lot of work that we're doing right now, so it'll be sort of a larger, more in-depth report the next time we meet.
We could always call a short notice meeting or something, we have to make a decision or something.
Yeah, and if something comes up, I'll just send it to Boyd and she can send it to everybody.
Yeah, so that would, we basically skip the 11th, meet on the 18th instead, skip the 25th, and then get back to our regular meeting attendance on the 8th.
Okay.
So,
June 8th?
right.
Okay,
So
because the 18th,
we'll go.
if you met again 2 weeks later, so let me get back. You met on the 18th, next meeting would be the week of Memorial Day, the 1st,
Right.
which I'm not here that week.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I
Yeah,
was
right.
thinking, just keep the same,
Yeah,
you know,
yep, that's fine.
you know, so we basically go 3 weeks and then another 3 weeks, and then
Oh,
we're
okay.
back on our regular
Yep.
schedule.
Okay.
Do we need to discuss what we're presenting at the time?
So, yeah, that was gonna be the next thing I talk about. So, I mean, at the fall town meeting, I just got up and talked for 4 or 5 minutes. There wasn't anything that I showed or presented.
So we had the moderators meeting this morning.
Yep.
And so we are one of 4 committees that wants to make a brief presentation. I did ask the moderator if he had any issue with, we want to take the boards we have and put them on easels in the lobby so people could just look at them if they wanted to. Might spark some interest, might get people to go listen a little more closely when you mentioned the May 18th meeting. He was fine with that. If
Yeah, I would say, when I presented at the fall town meeting, really none of the other committees had a slideshow or anything that they showed. So I think if we can have maybe something in the lobby that's a nice happy medium where I can say there's additional information in the lobby.
We should put that list of savings on a board and put it in the
Yes.
lobby.
Just gonna bring that up.
We should at least have one slide. And that slide should have a link to the town website where all of our information is. Or a handout or something.
QR
QR code?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I've tried looking around on the website for where we have, I know we have all the agenda and meeting minutes compiled.
go to you have to look at it on an actual computer right now. You can't look at it from a tablet
Yeah, I
or a
was looking
phone.
at it on my computer today.
And it's under committees.
Yeah.
Go down
How many items
and
do we
you'll
have
see
on this?
Fire Station Building Committee, and then there's some drop-down menus from there. One for building studies, one for presentations, and one for FAQ.
I thought I was on the fire station committee portion,
My point exactly. The committee can't even find it.
We're working on the new
Yeah,
website,
I
we're
know.
hoping to launch it by the end of June, but it really, I mean, it's, because I was going over with Amanda today, hey, I need to update the FAQ, and she was walking me through where the actual document was, that I could.
We gotta find a way to get that link out there.
yeah.
If there's a handout with the link on it, or a QR code or whatever, I don't know.
What about putting a QR code on the board in the lobby?
So.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Like put it
Yeah,
right
just
down in
do
the
that.
corner,
Yeah.
you know, for more,
Someone-
for
If
more
we can even
information.
link it by QR code.
I,
That's where it is.
No, I just figured out how to use those.
It's
uh,
super easy
Yeah,
to
let's
do,
make
yeah.
sure
With
that
our
it's ready
website-
for you, so.
I'd be scared.
I think maybe having it on one of the boards, I mean, I guess we could have it up on the screen, I just don't know if people will write it down or
What if
not.
we did like a read-only Dropbox or something where they could at least just access the physical documents if the website's such a nightmare? And QR code that.
Well, the website's just hard to find. And people aren't gonna click 15 times to get there, which is what you have to do, maybe 15 is not the right
simply
number.
put a
but it's more
QR
than-
code,
It's
people
more
can
than
scan
3,
it.
right? So I mean, if there's a handout that they could take that has the link on it, so they could at least type it in, or a QR code they could scan, or,
Yeah, it's not an issue.
yeah, I mean, something would be great. But even maybe having an 8.5 by 11 paraphernalia piece would be good to have. So somebody, maybe they leave it on their table and it reminds them to go to the meeting in a week.
Yeah, you go to boards and committees, and then you drop down to Fire Station Building Committee. And then you have the three,
Sorry.
and then there's building studies and reports, fire FAQs, and working group minutes.
It didn't look anything like this when I looked at it.
Yeah, so it's under boards and committees,
Okay.
and then you see Fire Station Building
See, I
Committee.
went through the minutes and then clicked on the fire station committee and,
Blythe, you should do this on the screen,
Yeah.
so that we can say,
Look
look at the recording of.
On the website when we can make 3 QR codes. So.
Yeah, you just put in a.
If someone-
I just learned something.
Yeah.
well,
I'm gonna have to staff that out to somebody, cause that's
That's easy.
Todd's on.
awesome.
I didn't say that.
You
said it's easy.
I mean, if that can go in our,
Misinterpret.
can it go in our presentation on the screen in the auditorium, or?
It can,
Wherever-
you know, people
wherever you
can
want.
put their phones up to the screen or sit on the board.
I think if it's on one of the boards, it's
Yeah, I think
probably
that-
more likely that they'll click it
Yeah, I agree.
than have it up on a screen for
Make
a
one-
brief.
Well,
If we put it on the
make
screen,
one- make
put it on the
one
screen,
board.
it's gonna be like.
No problem.
All you.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if they're interested by whatever we say, they can click it on the way out as
Yeah.
well if they didn't do it beforehand.
Yeah, so I think a board definitely with the exterior rendering, the list of cost-saving measures,
The floor plan, the
floor
picture
plan.
of the outside.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, the ones we have, except for the savings.
Right.
I don't even know if you wanna get into the cost savings, I mean, cause it's gonna be in the FAQ section, right, so you might wanna just link it.
I think a board, I would want a board.
Board, but, you know, the exterior renderings, maybe plans, maybe a couple photos of the existing conditions.
yeah, that's a good idea.
The boards are visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, photos of existing conditions is a good idea, Ron, if you can have one of those.
Yeah, so we'll make a board that has the existing, the savings list.
That's the only
and-
one you have to add, I think you got everything else.
Yeah, and we'll make a board that has, just a bunch of existing conditions photos.
And the QR code somewhere.
Does anybody have
But
some
Todd's gonna work
easels?
on it.
Cause that's one of the things I'm not sure we have. Do we have any easels anywhere? Do you use
Maybe you
Rich?
can just hold them.
Probably.
Sorry?
From the school, I'm sure they get money.
Just need to grab some, cause I don't think we have, I don't know that we have any, just to put them on. We could put them in one area, one next to each other, and,
Falls in, he probably has plenty
All right.
over there.
So somebody would have to actually send me the link that you want the QR code to bring you to?
No problem.
Todd's on it.
It's easy.
Very easy.
Yep,
Not a big deal.
yeah, so we get that, we'll
I'm
make
happy
the
to
QR
test it
code.
if you wanna send it my way.
No,
Okay.
we're not having any testing. Anybody else?
Committee.
So,
But-
I mean-
But I was gonna just kind of update everybody where we are in the process, that we're in design development. And then, I can reference that we have some boards here, kind of go through the existing conditions, talk about, I was gonna touch on the temporary trailer and just kind of highlight that, you know, the fire department staff is certainly making a lot of sacrifices. We understand it's an expensive project, but they're making a lot of sacrifices to make this as affordable as possible.
so do you wanna have slides that get shown on the screen in the auditorium, or just
I think
refer
just
to the things in
boards.
the lobby?
I'm just gonna get up and talk and just have the boards, and then,
But they're gonna be in the, they're outside.
yeah, I'll tell people that if you didn't see them
Okay.
coming in, certainly take a
Great.
look when you leave. And then reference the community meeting that we have coming up,
Okay.
so 2 or 3 minutes maybe.
Great.
Anything else that we think is
That we
important to touch
A
on?
meeting in
Post
writing
one of those
on
with the
like,
boards, do you know
on
that?
one of the new boards, just right next to, like, you know, I realize it would be like a one-time use thing, but we should probably have that written somewhere where people can see it, whenever the next meeting is.
Maybe the board you're making with the photos.
Or the schedule, what's left.
Yeah, the schedule, the schedule.
Upcoming meetings.
What's that?
List all the upcoming meetings.
I feel like it should almost be like a standalone, because it, like, if I looked at a board that had 16 upcoming meetings, I'd be like, I get overwhelmed and scared, and I would just leave.
I don't know that we need to list all our upcoming meetings, but I think definitely the community meeting gets listed.
Even if it's just like a piece of paper that we tape to the board, so that way we don't have to reprint it when that meeting is passed. Just anything that will.
Good point,
I think you're making a board with some existing conditions photos on it, maybe it just goes on that one.
Okay,
Does that make sense, or?
yeah. It's just a matter of, we've got like one meeting scheduled, right? So do we want when you say a list of meetings?
No,
No.
Just
we're not gonna
No,
have a
just
list of
the
meetings, we're not gonna have a list of meetings.
Oh,
Just the
okay,
community
so it's
meeting
gonna
on the
be,
18th.
you know, you're invited to a meeting.
Community
on the
meeting on May
18th.
18th.
Even if
Yep.
it's just like printed on something like this, that's like set on a board,
Yeah.
I think is.
May
sufficient.
18th,
Like, I don't think we need to
7:30
increase it.
PM
Right.
at the library.
Well, actually, I think what Justin's bringing, because once we do the existing conditions, we're gonna wanna bring that on the road and keep using it, so.
You want a separate.
If we do have it printed on that board.
No.
Yeah,
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
just some way to show that, you know, that you
Yeah.
make,
So maybe it's
make
a-
it
Like you
prominent.
said, just hook it over the top of one of the,
Mhm.
or maybe a couple of them,
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then we can take, you know, you can take them off, because it is a one-use
Mhm.
type of thing.
We'll get the tax guys and spin the sign.
And we'll take pictures of the easels so that we can show that we actually advertise for the meeting.
right.
If anyone has any other thoughts between now and the 10th of anything you want me to bring up, certainly share it with me. Work it in somehow.
We have to update the FAQs with some of the things that we've discussed, and I'm looking at it now. We should have, what is the schedule? As one of our frequently asked questions.
Do we do handouts for the FAQs at the town, at the 18th meeting? Or do we just refer
I
people
think
to
we
the
want,
website?
I think we want to funnel traffic to the website.
Yeah, and I know they need to be updated, I just haven't had a chance to do it. And we have the list of things that we talked about at one of the working group meetings, I was gonna incorporate those.
Yeah, working group meeting,
Yeah.
temporary facility question. Plantings.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I just didn't get to it.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm also always worried about putting things down like the plantings and jinxing it, right? So I know if I put it
We'll
down
know-
as a
we'll
savings,
know-
it won't get approved, and if,
We'll know no, we won't,
You won't know.
we won't know the plan.
We can be conservative.
right, because and the other thing is, we don't have numbers of these savings, we just know it's gonna be savings, and we wanna wait for the DD estimate to come back and see what everything reconciled at. I mean, the good news is, you know, you took $400,000 right off the top by, you know, making that decision on the temporary trail, so we're making progress.
400 plus.
400 plus.
Whatever that ends up being, we should label that at the high end of the estimate.
All right, that's all the discussion items I have, unless anyone has anything else they want.
What's the plan for building commissioning, envelope commissioning? Whenever,
We're gonna put something out for that to a different set of consultants.
What are you asking about, the timing?
the timing, and are they gonna be involved in the design? Looking at that part of the specifications, maybe looking at the plans or anything like that?
What I'd like them to be is involved in, at the point of CD, to take a look at
Already?
those building envelope.
That was
We
quick.
have to use a real.
You know, right now, we don't even know what windows we're using, so.
Is it like July, August?
Or to download it?
Probably July.
It's PDF.
You link
I
right
have
to the
look back at
FAQ
schedule.
section.
No,
Yes, sir.
actually, July.
I do it till I.
Nice work.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get the envelope commissioning agent.
CD is like August timeframe, because then bidding was gonna be September, October, I believe.
No, November.
Yeah, I can check the schedule, but I think we're done DD in June. Beginning
Yeah.
of June.
Yes,
DD in
I just
June.
looked this
In
morning.
fact, it's June
And-
4th. And then,
I think I'm getting another project.
that's okay.
scheduled.
And then-
Yes, I'm like, what?
So, yeah, if we could, you know, I don't wanna say hurry up and get them and then have nothing to send, right? So we are working through our wall section details and our section details and roof details and things like that, so, you know, if we can get him on board, we'll definitely get the drawings over to him. It's a new building, I'm sure there's not gonna be a lot to pick through, but at the same time, you know, that's what commissioning agents bring to the table, right? They can talk about how things are being flashed and maybe even offer some ideas to try to get to the, because one of the air infiltration goals we're trying to meet is the passive house. And not that anything's gonna be passive house, but that's, you know, that's a proven metric, that if you're building, I don't know, what is it, 0.08 CFM per square foot or something like that in terms of air infiltration, then you know for a fact that you have a very tight building. And there's no reason for us not to do that, because it is a new building and everything's insulated on the outside of the weather barrier, so, you know, it's a good opportunity to just do that. It's good practice.
I think it's well worth the investment in a 50-year plus building.
Great to have their ideas and design too, and I've seen or heard of having like colorized plans
Mhm.
for the envelope, so you can see this is the air barrier, this is the water barrier. So
Right. The old Wagnerianus, you know, if you pick up your pen when you're drawing the air barrier, you failed.
I got a couple random items. The fire engines in the rendering's still red.
We can make those black.
Please.
They're really black truck? Yeah, they are. They're black
Yeah,
and
one
red.
of them is.
Yeah.
Is the tanker gonna be black, do we know? What
Okay.
color did they
Not
spec the
everything.
tanker?
That's a question I didn't think to ask.
Just curious.
Talking about the fitness center made me think of acoustics. I don't know if we have an acoustic consultant or not. I don't remember. But, I know we're over the bays, which probably isn't a big deal, but there's some big weights in there. They're gonna be bouncing around. And maybe there's somebody sleeping next door. There might be something we want to think about in the floor assembly.
Mhm.
But talking out loud.
Okay.
We had a community member mention the potentially relocating across the street, which, again, I know is something that we considered. He outlined a pretty specific plan. I'm wondering if it's worth addressing that proposal more formally. The proposal was to put a temporary tent across the street on town property and move the fire station over there. The proposal was presented as something that would be very affordable. When we looked at, even the cost of relocating the fire station became cost prohibitive, let alone what you were putting it in. So is there a way that we can address that question, potentially as an FAQ question, and put some costs to it, or not like itemized costs, but an estimate, or saying, it was presented as something with 5 zeros in it or something, or a 5-digit number, whereas I think we were thinking like high 6-digit number.
Yeah, we can do that.
You guys did the Engine 42 building, right?
We did.
So what was their cost for that tent? Can you look that
I
up?
think the Engine 42, because we talked about that at the interview, and if I recall, it was, something close to $1 million.
That was just a single bay tent. It wasn't anything.
And that
glamorous.
was for the bay, that was for the trucks, I don't know how many trucks, but.
It was one in a SUV.
And the quarters. But we also know from Walpole, because Walpole also did a temporary station on the field out back.
We should quote both of those.
And
Great.
Walpole, I think the chief during our walkthrough, because that's one of the stations we visited, I think he talked about the price of because the construction cost, like we were all asking, like, how much did this cost per square foot? The price that he quoted did not include that. So he said, what we're talking here in terms of numbers does not include what we did across the street, in that field out back.
There's gotta be site work involved too, you can't just plant a
Well,
fire station somewhere.
exactly, you need to have, and the community member's quote was, he'd save 10% on the construction cost. Well, but then he quoted the total project cost, because the construction cost is like somewhere between 17 and 18 million, which would be 1.7 million, not 2.3 million, or rounded up to 2.5 million. So, we're certainly not gonna make that kind of savings, but what we can do is, in the frequently asked questions, just compare it to 2 other fire stations that just did this, right?
Plus, there's challenges with that site. I talked to the Rich McCarthy and Bob Bullock about it, because there was questions about what are we gonna do with Old Town Hall, and the site came, as part of that. And there's a stream at, at one point, and you can't just go build something within, like, 200 feet of it, which makes your ability to put something even at whatever cost,
Yeah.
where you need to put it.
Well, that's
You'd have to go through planning, and then you'd have to go through the whole project, be a full separate project.
And Steve, you're right, because he wasn't just saying build it temporarily and then take it down. He was saying build it temporarily and then leave
And
it
then you
there
can
as
use
a
it
center for
as
the
a
town.
town asset.
Well, when we was
Town
talking
asset.
about the Brownless property on North Street, that's what he was thinking. I'm not sure he meant that when he was gonna go in the Old Town Hall property.
I thought he did say that.
That's what I heard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he's forgetting about the fact that we're investigating a possibly, new downtown sewer district, and, the likely location for the pipe through there is right through there to get to leaching field, so.
I mean, it seems a little annoying to have to list all of the reasons why it was rejected, but maybe if it keeps coming up, we do need to do that.
Yeah, I think a bulleted list with
Yeah.
some cost implication on it, at least is something.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we have to do something, because we keep asking for community input. When we get it, we have to respond to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed.
And I don't think we've done so. The only response we've done so far is yeah, we looked at it and it didn't work out. I mean, it's not an acceptable answer to anybody, right?
And the other piece of that is that I believe in the 2016, a lot of the documents that Matt sent to us, there was a quote of $1 million. It was like 1.1 or
To
something like that.
go to DPW.
To relocate the DPW site.
Right, and then the last part of that is he was saying it would, working around the existing building would increase the cost of construction. There's some way we could comment on that, either that we're far enough away from it or
Yeah.
whatnot, that we don't see it impacting the existing building.
I mean, honestly, and I don't mean any disrespect to schools, but when you're trying to protect with kids and things like that, it's a completely different animal than a bunch of professional firefighters. You know, I mean, just from that perspective, we can easily answer that question as, there's gonna be ample space for the contractor to work around this thing. And even if they move to the other side of the street, they'd still have to work around the existing, they're not gonna knock down. I think what he was saying was, knock down the existing building and then put the building
And it's
where the old building was. And you're not gonna be able to do that. I mean, you'd have to build a whole station across the street, right? You'd have to put all the apparatus in. I can find out what they did at Station 42.
They did, I mean, it was, it's only 6 people and the infrastructure required to do that, so it wasn't like a big, it's not like you're knocking down the only fire station in the community. That's a totally different ballgame.
Right.
But at
Right.
least that's a tent that you guys are familiar with. You could say,
Yeah.
like, to park an ambulance and an engine in this tent is X number of dollars.
Never mind.
Never
Six
mind
pieces.
all the other
Yeah.
things and all the administrative costs and the plumbing costs and who
Maybe,
knows what
I mean,
else.
all the
maybe it's an item
dispatch-
we add to our savings list, right?
Mhm.
Not relocating the existing fire station.
Oh, we
Yeah,
should
that's a good
definitely,
idea.
we should
Yeah.
definitely do that, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, all the dispatch, all the connection that we have to the MEC, that
right.
you can't just pick that up and move it so easily either.
We
But
could
that's
put a
what I mean,
timeframe
that's
on
not
that,
gonna,
too.
like, it doesn't,
So if there's a way we could
Yeah.
put these numbers, every time we're talking here,
Yeah.
the number's growing, right? So
Yeah.
let's
And you
get
could
it out there.
Make some
Put the
sort of-
time frame like it would take 9 months to execute this project, which then adds this much percentage onto the tail end of the cost with
It's 9
inflation.
more months in the trailer.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you have a contractor there,
Mhm.
so there's general conditions for him besides just the cost of whatever it is.
so I think
And you want someone to watch what's going on.
that should be a pretty,
Yeah.
a number that would illustrate a large savings, I feel like.
So,
but the good news is now you know why it was 1.1 million to go to DPW. Because you did have to move dispatch, you did have to move all the alerting systems, you did have to, do all these things that it's not, we aren't just building a tent to play soccer in. So,
Until later.
Later.
until later.
yeah, so I don't know, between Steve and Ron, just based on your experience, if you can put something together and then we
Yeah.
can take a
Get it
look
to
at
me and I'll
get
put it on
Yep.
the, I'll update the FAQ.
Okay.
All right, and the last subject was, we've kind of been talking about maybe a school project, research project. I don't know if that's gone anywhere, or if any of us should make some phone calls or. what.
Yeah, I talked about it with a couple people. Some of the feedback that I got was that it seemed like it might be come off a little ham-handed,
Yeah.
but
What was
Curious.
the,
There was thoughts that the school over at Freeman does a persuasive essay. It's an assignment that the classes do. So one of the questions was, could the kids have the option to write a persuasive essay on why the fire station needs to be replaced, or something similar, right? So that's just a thought to get the community involved.
I'm not necessarily squashing it, I'm just, the 3 or 4 people I talked to, that was kind of.
Well, then I think the
general
committee
feedback
should
that I
write
got.
persuasive essays.
Ouch.
I like the idea, I thought it was,
They're called meeting notes.
I thought it was a cool idea to have the
Yeah.
kids, you know, because first of all, it's a great thing for them to do that's real, you know, and when you talk to students all the time, it's like they want to do something that's real.
I feel like
Yeah.
I wanted to do something that involved the least amount of writing.
They could do video
Visual
testimonials and persuasive
But
testimonials.
is there like,
Go on
do
TikTok.
we talk to the scout troop and see if there's an Eagle Scout looking for a project that we can turn into this, and then get community investment that way? Because this would be a good opportunity to, plant a garden or make a bridge or whatever an Eagle Scout project entails.
Well, do you have a troop of scouts in town?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, my son's in it.
Really? Ask them if they want to get their architecture merit badge.
Oh, yeah, we can involve that, I mean,
Didn't know there was an architecture merit badge.
Yeah, it's the only one my son didn't get, 'cause
I wonder why.
Yeah.
Dad might critique it.
yeah.
but seems like a straightforward way to get some involvement.
Yeah, it could be, I mean, it'd be kind of a cool thing to walk the scouts through everything and,
We'll have attendance at the meetings at least.
yeah.
They did talk about the project, because they talked about, so my son is earning his citizenship in the community
Yeah.
badge, and so they had a discussion on, projects in town, so they talked about the school project, talked about the fire project, how those get paid for, so it might be something to dovetail off of that.
Sure.
So,
Okay. I have to go next door.
And
Good
yes,
luck.
Yeah, I think
shortly.
we only have action items left, so, we already did the temporary trailer, but we do need you for this one, Ron. So please consider approval for architect to proceed with FF&E services, so I'll give a little background. If everyone recalls, we had a list of additional services that were kind of outside of basic services. One was, I think, $85,000 for,
The total of this was 85,000.
but most of that, I think, is during construction, or some of it's during construction.
Well, it was I got it up here on the screen, it was the 10,000 for the enhanced landscaping. Just at one point, when we were putting our contract together before starting, we thought maybe the green belt would be something we wouldn't have to do since it was an existing site. And we were using an existing site to turn an existing fire station into a new fire station, and we were wrong. And so we had listed that as an added service. The permitting was the 25,000. The septic design, we don't have to worry about, and, because that's out. And then the furniture, and then the phase 1 environmental is out. And the 85,000 was for us to help. As I said earlier, what we want to do is put together a list of all the furniture and equipment. We want to be able to help you procure that. And then obviously facilitate with Steve the installation of all these things and the punch list to go through with it. And so that's the 85,000, of which we only need half. We only need 41 right now. And it's one of those things where if this was a different type of project where there's not a lot of coordination, we'd be talking differently about this, but what we really wouldn't want to have happen is we specify, the gear cleaners, the extractor machines and things like that. And then somehow something else gets bought, so the plugs and the venting and the plumbing that was put in the wall doesn't align with what we need. So it's just that level of coordination that we typically know it brings a value to the project. So you can forget the septic and the environmental, because we don't need either one of those two things.
So, I think these were all in their original proposal.
Mhm.
Just, it's a significant amount, $41,000, so we just wanted to bring it to the committee before officially having them move forward.
Plus the 25, plus the 10.
Plus the 25, plus the 10.
Ron, 41 or 42?
Whatever I wrote in the email.
Yeah.
Vote 42.
42.
Okay.
So it's like about 120,000, oh, no, because it's not
Sorry.
85, so it's about.
Right, it's not the
I
85.
mean, some of the work's already started
85,000
because,
total.
like tonight, they were going to go,
Yeah, so we had to get a jump on the enhanced landscaping piece.
The FF&E is really the only one they haven't started yet.
Right.
right,
We're improving them.
which is why I wrote the motion the way, I wrote the title of the item that way. Because we know we already we know we had to go to planning and to ZBA, and they've already done some of the work to
Right.
get there.
So a lot of the permitting stuff has already been done, and a lot of the enhanced landscape has been done, and we're gonna do it again. But the good news is, we're not charging you any extra. We just-
Well, thank you.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I guess it's easy to delete plants than it is to add, right? So you can easily do that.
All right, so I'll ask for a motion to approve Doran Whittier to move forward with additional services for the enhanced landscaping, the permitting, you took it down, I was gonna read off it, but the permitting and it's all right, and the FF&E design phase services, which is 42,000 of the 85,000.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. It's unanimous, passes. Thank you, Ron.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll go get us that landscaping approved.
Yeah, right.
Aren't you glad we took you right up to 8 o'clock?
Right. No downtime.
All right.
We'll see which one they're on, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those poor dogs.
Cross their paws.
So last action item, please consider approval of the minutes. We have minutes to approve?
Mhm. April 13th.
You reviewed them?
I have, no comments, like, ask for a motion to approve the April 13th regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
You don't trust me?
I wasn't there.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Any other discussion items anyone wants to bring up? Before we adjourn? Okay.
Motion
Now-
to adjourn.
You're all coming with me next door, right?
Ask
So
for a
moved.
motion- ask for a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you.
Motion and
See
second.
everyone on the 18th.